All right, good evening. We are thankful for this opportunity, thankful for your presence. We're thankful for those who are joining us or will join us in the future by way of the internet, Facebook, or YouTube. We ask that if you have any questions that you get a hold of us and that you are able to ask your questions and give us the opportunity to answer those. Now, I made a grave mistake last week. Didn't mark where we ended. I usually go back on the video and make sure, and I didn't get it recorded last week. There was no class video. So I'm guessing.
At 5, verse 5.
Of
11. That's where I've got it marked.
I thought we got further than that.
Well, maybe it was the week before we got to 5.
Yeah, I remember us talking about verse 10 when the wicked perish, they're shouting. I remember mentioning that Rome rejoiced when Nero died. I remember us talking about the world having a sigh of relief when Hitler was dead or when Saddam Hussein was found and killed.
I think 12. I don't remember 12. If we did 12, I missed it. I know we did 11.
Yeah, I'm pretty, but we'll just pick up at 12 and we'll just kind of refresh because I was thinking that we got to about 23 or 24, but we're going to just refresh. There's nothing wrong with that. Verse 12, he that is void of wisdom despises his neighbor, but a man of understanding holdeth his peace. That's maturity. A man of understanding knows when to speak and knows when to withhold. We mentioned last week, I believe it was, a man, it's better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and to remove all doubt. A man of understanding can hold his peace. A talebearer revealeth secrets, but he that is of a faithful spirit conceals a matter. The one who is revealing secrets is a dangerous person. They cause a lot of damage. They go about separating best friends, the Bible would say in other places. They cause damage within friendships, damage within families, damage within congregations. The talebearer is a very dangerous individual, but that who is faithful conceals a matter. And you can tell, the Bible tells us that you can tell someone between being faithful and unfaithful and those who have loose lips. And if someone has that problem of talking about things they have no business talking about, that's a telltale sign that they're an unfaithful person. Verse 14, where no counsel is, the people fall. That's any nation, any city, any congregation, any organization. There's got to be strong leadership. There's got to be good counsel. What does the president have around him? He has a cabinet, right? He has a multitude of people that he has his advisors and he has counselors around him. That is out of wisdom. This country is too big for just one man to rule. He needs help. That's what it's biblical. It's smart. Verse 15, he that is surety for a stranger shall smart for it. He'll hurt. And you remember we talked about that man who, the preacher who had taken on and signed for his friends, and his friends skipped out on their payments, and he had to give up his wealth. He had to give up some 500 choice acres in Georgetown. It would have been $3.5 million in today's money that he had to give up because he was surety for somebody. And he who is surety cannot be sure. That's what the end of the verse says. And he that hateth suretyship is sure. Well, the antithesis of that is true. Verse 16, a gracious woman retaineth honor, and strong men retain riches. The Bible talks about gracious women. The woman in Proverbs 31 whose value, whose worth is far above rubies. There's New Testament passages, 1 Peter chapter 3, for example, that tell us what a beautiful woman is in the sight of God. And so does the world always see beauty from that vantage point? No, the world doesn't look at a woman with a quiet and meek and gentle spirit as someone who they want to imitate. But God says that's beautiful. That's what beauty is. Go ahead.
I mentioned Jasmine Crockett because they talked about the difference, that she moved down to Austin, Texas. It's a liberal place. And she didn't used to be real loud and cursing. But once she got into politics in Austin, Texas, it's like, wow, this is a different person. And she's loud and cursing.
Yeah. And that's not as beautiful as it.
No, it's not.
And I think we're going to get to a place here in a minute that really gets down to, I think it's verse 22 actually, that really brings that out. When it talks about the jewel of gold in a pig's snout, so is a fair woman which is without discretion. Some women have ruined their outward beauty by their outward conduct. Not only by not being discreet in the way they dress, in the way they present themselves, but when they open their mouth and they curse and they demean, and those kinds of dispositions are not pretty, are not attractive.
The suggestion that I've seen just by people being amazed, is that she is not bad looking, and there was some appeal, and maybe they could see why she got elected, but then, wow, now she's in power.
Right.
What a change.
Yeah. It's a shame.
Robby, can I ask you, I know I've asked weird questions that will come from the perspective of maybe somebody that's different, but, you know, some of these, I've always thought when I've studied Proverbs, and I have, that they were pithy statements. And that was the word that I always use, you know, they are pithy statements that God has made, or the writer has made, for our understanding, I guess. But in this particular way, is there anything, when I was in high school, we read, and I was in high school this century, we read something in case somebody, in case something that we read one time in the English class, a book, a little short story about a Mexican boy. I remember, in the whole thing was a man who's called when a man is needed. In other words, he needed to be the man of the family because his father wasn't there. Can we apply anything here that's said to that?
I'm sure we can.
Because it says in verse 2 that a good man is, is favorable, and this, it goes on, and the brothers are talked about the female in Texas and her cursing, and how she seemed like a changed person. At least that's my terminology.
Yeah.
That she's with the cursing, and she's now, in cahoots with a lot of her base because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything here that we can learn from this we can apply? Sure, that's fine.
Well, I think that verse 22 itself, everybody knows what a pig looks like, wallowing in the mud and everything, and just the idea of putting a jewel in that pig's snout, he's going to stick it right down in the mire.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah, and-
all pigs are muddy.
It didn't say a pet pig. It was talking about the
Iconic is not under discussion here. So, Yeah, absolutely. Because these proverbs are just like before you on this. It's the way of wisdom. It's about life. It's applying wisdom to what we do, and that is in our words, in our deeds, in our thoughts. And so these proverbs deal with every aspect of life. And they're calling us to live with integrity, for us to seek after God's way of doing things. And certainly with, like verse 16, the gracious woman retaineth honor. Well, in the case of the congresswoman, in the eyes of a lot of people, because of the Jekyll and Hyde type transformation, she's lost honor in the sight of many people. And the honor that she's gotten from others is not true, good honor. It's not really, that's not good. To be lauded and praised for the antics and things that she's doing. And I think that you could go make application after application after application to those things from the text, from these proverbs. They don't always flow perfectly in a cohesive thought. Sometimes they're, kind of seem disjointed, but definitely applicable all throughout. Absolutely.
See, in verse 16, I don't have the same, I'm using one of the Bibles that came here, because I don't have mine, which is New American Indian. I mean, it's American Standard.
Yeah.
New American Standard. And this is King James, and it says nothing about a woman. It talks about a man.
In verse 16?
Yes. A fool's wrath is presently known, but a prudent man covereth shame, is what it says.
In chapter 11?
Yes.
Verse 16 starts off, a gracious woman.
Or 12. I thought we were from 12. No wonder. Okay, I was reading verse, I thought we were in 12. Sorry.
It's my fault for not communicating clearer.
No, it's my fault.
And
I said that.
and so yeah, the gracious woman, if you read 1 Peter 3, verses 3 and 4, he's talking about the ornament. What is it that adorns a beautiful woman? It's the meek and quiet spirit. It's the gentleness of a woman. In verse 17, he talks about the merciful man. The merciful man doeth good to his own soul, but he that is cruel troubles his own flesh. Well, the Bible's replete with examples of men who troubled their own soul in doing wrong, and replete with men who did good, who were good men. You think of Cornelius in Acts chapter 10 and 11, a devout man, a man who did many alms. He gave to the people, and God sent a messenger to him to tell him how he could be saved. He was a good man, and that definitely blessed his soul. But then you got people like Ahab, Cain. His wickedness troubled his own flesh, didn't it? Over and over, you see that kind of thing. In verse number 18, the wicked work a deceitful work, but to him that soweth righteousness shall be a sure reward. You reap what you sow. You sow righteousness, that's a sure reward. God, we mentioned Hebrews 6, I think it is, in verse 10. I may be misspeaking. God is not unrighteous to forget your labor, your work for him. You work righteousness, Galatians chapter 6 says, you will of the Spirit reap life everlasting. That's just the way it works. But what happens if you sow to the flesh? What do you reap then? Corruption. It's just the way it works. He says in verse 19, as righteousness tendeth to life, so he that pursueth evil pursueth it to his own death. Abimelech in Judges chapter 9, Gehazi in 2 Kings 5, he was told, we're not going to take any of this wealth that Naaman is going to bestow for being recovered of his leprosy. And Gehazi went behind the prophet's back and took the clothing, took the gifts, and he also took upon himself Naaman's leprosy. He pursued his evil to his own death. In verse 20, they that are of a froward heart are abomination to the Lord, but such as are upright in their way are his delight. And so you can be of a perverse nature, and God looks at that as abomination. God doesn't appreciate that. Or you can be upright in your way, and to God that is his delight. He takes pleasure when he looks down and sees his children doing as he has instructed to do. What did Paul say? Or John say? I get them wrong sometimes. John said, I have no greater pleasure than to know what? My children are walking in truth. That's my joy. That's my delight. And that's a godly position, because God looks down upon people striving to live for him, and he says, that is my delight. But those that are troublemaking, those that pursue evil, that's an abomination. Verse number 21, though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. You know that there is no league that can be formed, no posse that can come together. There is no hand that can join in hand here on earth and defy the pronouncement of punishment from God. Though hand join in hand, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. When God says that's it, guess what? That's it. It doesn't matter what kind of league you think you have. It doesn't matter what kind of camaraderie and army or whatever that you may amass. When God's done with you, you're done. You're going to be judged. You're going to be punished. But the seed of the righteous, delivered. God knows how to deliver the righteous. He knows how to save the righteous. But the Bible also tells us he knows how to reserve the unjust for punishment. He knows how to reserve the wicked for punishment. But he also knows how to deliver the righteous. He says in verse 22, as a jewel of gold in a swine's snout, so is a fair woman which is without discretion. Now, how fitting is it? We're not talking about the spa day pig. We're not talking about the ones that live, as good as anybody else. We're talking about the ones that are they're out there in the yard. They're in the pen. Or a wild hog that goes around rooting and destroying. We're just going to trap one of those suckers, and we're going to put a $1,000 14-karat gold ring in its nose, about a 1/4 carat diamond. And how wise is that? How fitting is that? Not very fitting, is it? Not very wise. Does that change the nature of that pig? No, not at all. It's still very unfitting. And he says that's the picture that he uses to paint, to show what it is like for a woman to be without discretion. A woman with discretion is a lady whose conduct is above reproach. That's what discretion is. It's living above reproach. It is a seemly woman, a godly woman. She is what God would have her to be. That is what we're talking about. Someone with discretion.
The gold and her beauty are both appealing, but the swine's still a swine, and she still lacks discretion.
Jezebel was Jezebel no matter what she looked like, right? An ungodly, terrible person. A murderer, if you will. No matter how beautiful she was. Whatever she looked like.
And there's an old saying, pretty is as pretty does.
And beauty is passing. It's only here for a short time.
That's right. We know that to be true, right? We know that beauty, they say, there's another saying, beauty's only skin deep.
Judge Judy says beauty fades, but dumb continues to last.
And that's in here somewhere. It's got to be, right? That's got to be in here somewhere. But that's true. We all know people who have lowered their standards, who have brought shame upon themselves for fame and for riches. And we see them in a different light than what we would if they had carried themselves in a better way. Had they been more chaste and more modest. It doesn't matter if you are beautiful. If you carry yourself like a harlot, that's what you are, right? That's what you promote out into the public. That's not attractive to a spiritually minded person. Verse 23, the desire of the righteous is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. The righteous person desires what? Good. A righteous person desires that which is good. Good for who and good for what? Good for everyone. Exactly right. A righteous person wants that which is good for everyone. That's what agape love is. It's love that wants the best for everyone regardless of whatever the situation. I want the best for you. A righteous person wants that which is best. He wants that which is best for his family. He wants that which is best for his community. He wants that which is best for his congregation. He wants that which is best for his country. He wants that which is best for the world. That's a righteous person wants what is good. But the expectation of the wicked is wrath. The wicked cannot produce that which is good. They just cannot do it.
Other translations for expectation says the hope. You
The
say,
hope.
What hope do you have? Only wrath.
Wrath. Yeah.
That's the hope you have.
The hope, yeah. The wrath, that is, what the expectation, what is the end for the wicked man or woman? The end, the expected end, for the righteous is eternal life. But for the wicked, the wrath of God is reserved against all them that do ungodliness, wickedness. In verse 24, I love this verse. There is that scattereth, and yet increaseth. And there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. Solomon said, cast your bread upon the waters, and you'll receive it after many days. There is that scattereth, and yet increaseth. He's talking about that person who is liberal in giving. That person who is liberal in providing for others, meeting the needs of others. They are liberal to give, and then God blesses them abundantly. They're not going to outgive God. As they give to others, God supplies for them so that they can keep on giving. And as they give, they yet increase. In Luke chapter 6 and verse 38, the Bible says, "Give, and it shall be given unto thee. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over." That's what he's talking about here.
It always has.
Always will. Galatians 6:10, "As you have therefore opportunity, do good unto all men, especially those of the household of faith. Be generous, be liberal in your giving, and you will increase." In chapter 19, and at verse number 17, he says this, "He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Lord." God says when you have pity upon those who cannot help themselves, you're lending to me. Does that remind you of something that Jesus said?
Lord, when do we see you naked and
Bingo.
starving?
And when you did it unto the least of these, you did it to me. When we do good for other people, that is serving God. That's how God views it. And then he says, "But there are those that withholdeth more than me." There are those that have to do and don't. That's the flip side of that coin. There are those that could provide and they don't. And what does that tend to? Poverty. What did Jesus say? There are going to be those that take what is given to them and they expound upon it and they grow it and they nurture it, and more will be given to them. But there are those that take what they have and they do nothing with it. And the Lord said, "I will take what they have and I'll give it to the ones that are going to do something with it." I think that's what he's pointing at here. It says in verse 25, "The liberal soul," this is one of those verses that really goes good with the previous. "The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that watereth shall be watered also himself." I don't think, anybody got a different translation for the word fat? Enriched. That's what he's talking about. He's not talking about what I got on me. He's talking about being enriched. What did Jesus say? Paul made a statement in Acts chapter 20 and verse 35 that we don't have recorded Jesus saying in the Gospels. But we know that Jesus taught this because Paul said we know that the Lord said this. It is what? Acts 20:35. It's more blessed to give than to receive. And in giving and providing for, that is the one and only area God has ever said, "Now I want you to be liberal in that." If you're going to be liberal in loving people. If you're going to be liberal in helping those in need. If you're going to be liberal in providing for your neighbor. If you're going to be liberal in love. If we love people, we'll help people. It says this, "He that watereth shall be watered also himself." He's saying the same thing in a different way, right? Give and it'll be given. You water others, you will be watered. How often do we involve ourselves in some good action or good deed, and we find out that we became blessed most of all. Sometimes when we go out trying to do good for somebody, oftentimes we don't even realize how bad we needed that ourselves. And so often I've heard of the missionaries coming home, and they come home from some third world country where men and women and children run barefoot, and they live on dirt floors in little huts, and they are the happiest people, and they go over there to spread the gospel and to try to lift them up in some way. And they always come home saying, they helped me more than I could have ever helped them. That's what he's talking about. They go over there to water, but yet those people were watering them. It's the way it works.
I look at Luke's account as being, well, John's the apostle of love, right? And I look at Luke being a physician, he's more a matter of fact. But this is such beautiful words in Luke 6:38. Given it shall be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over shall men give to your bosom. For with the same measure that ye meet, withal it shall be measured you again. Very dramatic and wonderful concept that you're not going to be able to hold. Very similar to the last part of, is it Malachi?
Yeah, Malachi 3, that's where I was going. Malachi 3, I believe.
He says, try me.
Yeah, Malachi 3 and 10. Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house, and prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open to you the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing. Listen, there shall not be room to receive it. You won't have enough room to receive the blessing that I pour out to you. You just prove me. Bring the tithes into the storehouse. What were those tithes for? And so often we forget that in Judaism, there were 3 tithes. So often we think, well, Israel gave 10%. No, they gave 30%. There was a tithe that they gave for the yearly pilgrimage. There was a tithe that they gave to the priesthood. And there was a tithe that they gave for the widows, for the strangers and the orphans and the foreigners that were in their land. And he says, bring those tithes, bring what you give, and prove me. And you watch what I do for you. You won't be able to, I've heard it put like this. We're so often down here giving with a teaspoon, and God's throwing it back with a snow shovel. Can't outgive him. You can't get it done. Thank you for bringing up Malachi. That was a perfect verse. He says, verse 26, he that withholdeth corn, the people shall curse him, but blessing shall be upon the head of him that selleth it. That's the same kind of, it makes me think of the Luke 12, the rich man, right? He that withholdeth corn. Do you think people are appreciative of those who have it and hoard it instead of having the mind and the vision to help and the trust in God that, you know, I can help this person and it's not going to make myself destitute. It's not going to take food off of my table, that God will bless me and he will help me through this. Verse 27, he that diligently seeketh good procureth favor, but he that seeketh mischief, it shall come to him. You ever heard that saying, be careful what you wish for? Well, be careful what you go after too, because a lot of times you go after it, you'll find it. People find what they're looking for, right? Well, when we go out there chasing mischief, we will find it. We'll get into all the trouble that we have ever wanted to get into. But those that diligently seeketh good procureth favor. Favor from men. Favor from God. In Luke chapter 2 and verse 52, Jesus grew in stature and favor with both God and man. Works both ways. It says in verse 28, he that trusteth in his riches shall fall, but the righteous shall flourish as a branch. Who do we got to trust in? Who do we have to put our trust in? God. A man that trusts in his riches will surely be sorry. But he that trusteth in God, he is a sure foundation. He has a tried and true and trusted and tested and proven source of help. The Lord is our refuge and strength. Psalm 46, 1 and 2. A very present help in time of trouble. Well, there's some things that you can get into and you can come upon that it don't matter how much money you got. Better have God in your life. Verse number 29.
Rob, before you get to 29, in verse 27 or 26 of chapter 11,
Uh-huh.
it says, "The liberal soul shall be made fat, and he that waters shall be watered also himself." In verse 26 says, he that withholdeth corn, the people shall curse him. And it goes on to say, but blessing shall be upon the head of him that selleth.
Uh-huh.
I fight that all the time at my house, with this one sitting next to me, about the president, what he's done with and I won't get into politics of it, I'm not trying to bring this up, but I'm just saying, is that we fight this all the time about what's happened in this country. Is this applied here or not?
In some respects, I would say yeah. You know, this is definitely talking to individuals, and it definitely. And I know we're a nation of individuals, but this isn't talking so much about national policy as much as it is just the way we direct our lives. You know,
We could ask each person about how they feel about this, and they give me a different answer. And I just want to find out if this is applicable to what's happening.
it is, but I think there's got to be, when we talk about the political climate and what's going on now, what I see is we're a nation that's approaching $37 trillion in debt. Well, we've been good to everybody, haven't we? What about our kids? What about our posterity? What about our great-grandchildren who are inheriting a tragedy and a travesty because we've shipped money that we didn't have all over the world to take care of everybody? But yet we're $37 trillion in debt. I'm not so sure that that's a biblical
When you say
position to be in.
When you say what about our kids, we get right into that when it's he that troubleth his own house. And so if a man does not look out for his own, he's denied the faith and he's worse than an infidel. Very, very close to this troubling your own house. I heard somebody recently talk about the stock market, but there have been plenty of people say, do you realize how much money we can make by getting in on this right now, on this ground floor of this? And you can trouble your house by spending your kids' education money.
Right.
You know, because you think you're going to make it big, you know.
I saw my dad posted this last night, and I thought it was interesting. The U.S. national debt is $36 trillion. If we spent $1 every second, every day, and did not add any more debt, we would be 31,688 years paying off $1 trillion. That's paying $86,400 a day. It would take us 31,688 years to pay off we're $36 trillion in debt. Paying $86,400 per day, it would take 1,140,771 years to pay off our national debt, and that's without adding a single cent to what it is. We've got to do good to all men, but we've got to take care of our own too. And so I say there's got to be balance. Got to be balance in that. Thank you so much. We've gone a little over time, but it's been a most enjoyable conversation with you. Thank you so much.